I think a lot of times people hold back because what's
Mm.
people going to say? Are they going to put me down? Are they going to laugh at me?
Back to Together We Are Stronger, Leadership Straight, No Chasers. I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, but the biggest housing of ideas that never came to life is the cemetery. And it is a sad thing when you think about that and how there's so many ideas that people have had and then decided not to go through with it because of XYZ, whatever it may be. We just never know. And George, I think we've shared this before, but it was something that I did a piece of content on. But when you really think about it, the lack of ideas coming to fruition, what do you think is that point that holds people back?
That's a great question. I think a lot of times people hold back because what's
Mm.
people going to say? Are they going to put me down? Are they going to laugh at me? I mean, what's crazy? U.S. Today came out with that. What is the richest land in the world? And I ask these questions these days, and people like, Dubai, and go on, right? And I say graveyards. It's because people had ideas they never took
Mm.
action on because people thought they were weird. Whatever the deal is, there's people that cure cancer, MS, other diseases. I mean, unbelievable about the information that people took to the grave
Mm.
and not share it. Again, we talked about knowledge a couple of episodes ago, and here we are with people who took things to the grave and they made no action about it. They had great ideas, they never took action. And I think that's the biggest problem with individuals, is taking action regardless. Focus on a couple things and take action on it. Whatever it is. If it's reading a book 10 pages a day, take action because you'll find yourself, you don't even think about it. You just do it. It's just on command because you're training your body, you're training your mind to get that done. And there's so many things with this, Scott, that
Mm.
people don't realize, and I know that I have done that for myself. I mean, you think about things, I should do this. And then, nah, I don't think so. Whatever the reason is, I
Mm.
never took action on it. And I know that there's probably a couple conversations we had that many years ago I never took action on. And here we are today. And so you have to. You have the clarity, you have your tribe.
Mm.
What's next? It's taking action. It's putting it in place, moving forward. I mean, what's your perspective on that? Because you've been around a lot of people that had the greatest ideas, but never took action about it. And they still work at the same place.
I think a lot of it's the judgment piece. And it's a very interesting aspect because the biggest judge really is ourselves. And we start doing the judging for others, starting with ourselves. And instead of just letting the judgment run its course from others because you can't control, you stop yourself because you start overthinking and you start wondering, what is somebody going to think? Or you feel as if, is anybody going to listen to me? The issue is if you let those voices and that internal judge take over, you miss out. And then it goes back to who misses out on what you have to offer. And then do they end up going elsewhere and not getting the best of service? Are they not taken care of very well because that next person that they come across that offers what they're looking for, maybe they're not as passionate about it. And so it's a very interesting thing because somebody can be like, well, that sounds like it's very egotistical and this and that. And it's like, no, like you have to understand and trust yourself. And the idea is you have whatever it is that was placed on your heart because you have the skill set to do what you need to. And it's very interesting because if people would actually be within their zone of genius, whatever that is that allows them to thrive, and they operate in that and they continue to operate, they're going to be in a much better position because it's alignment with them as an individual.
Yeah.
But I think when I look at it, that biggest thing that stops anybody and they don't take action is because of that internal judging that's already taken place. And then you end up pulling yourself back. And so when I look at it, I think that's one of the top reasons that a lot of people miss out and they don't take the action because they are already doing the judging for 100,000 people. And it's that one person, and it's the internal voice that can be the hardest thing to get away from, because once that voice starts speaking up, it starts dragging and pulling things of, oh, what could go wrong? You might look like a goofball. You may have something. So it's very interesting because when I was doing the previous podcast, kind of the journey beyond divorce, I actually had somebody come on as a guest, and her ex-mother-in-law reached out to me and tried to say that I needed to take down this episode because she felt whatever was spoken wasn't in the right light. And it's a very interesting thing because you never know what may come up. So I actually had to talk to the guest and said, hey, this is what's going on. And she's like, yeah, I figure that's what's going to take place. Go ahead, take it down. We don't want to deal with it. But I continued to still run the show even after that for a while. But then I didn't do it anymore because I felt as if the healing process for me had taken place enough. And so that's why I ended up not doing the podcast on the journey beyond divorce anymore. Because for me, it got to the point where it's just myself. My co-host dropped off. And at the end of the time when I looked at it, I felt like I healed enough. It was enough for me for an outlet. And it just wasn't in my passion anymore. Because it's a unique thing that when I look at the realm of divorce and men, it's an ugly thing because as guys, we don't like to share our feelings. We don't want to be heard. And I would go into some of these divorce groups for men, and just to see men turn down men, it was crazy. And I was like, yeah, I can't do this because the issue is the other party that has to be part of the coaching and the healing process needs to be receptive and open to do it. And if they're not going to do it, it's not going to work out. So there, I could have stopped, but I continued to go because I needed to do it. It was still needing to be done. But that all comes down to taking action. And you just never know. And like we've talked about, that success and failure are the same coin, opposite sides. And you could take action and come across failure. You can take action, come across success, but it is all about the action because I think Tony Robbins was real big on talking about the loop where thoughts and beliefs lead into the actions that you take or you don't take, which then feeds into the results. And then it just is a cycle. And so if you are not getting the results that you want, the thoughts and beliefs start coming back. I can't do it. I'm not worthy. I can't do whatever, which leads into less action taking place. And so it plays into the fact that this is where your tribe comes into play. Because if you're getting stuck, you're only one person. You need to be able to lean on somebody that can help share an idea, a nugget, a perspective, what they did to overcome whatever it may be to help you go to that next level. But that's still taking action. It's a very interesting conundrum you could run into, but the only way you're going to get to that next destination is by taking action.
A great point. And, that's why sometimes the mirror can be your enemy, because a lot of times people look in the mirror and say, can I do this? And the expressions, the way you look, the way you feel has a huge part of your decision. And that's why sometimes, I always tell, if you can't lead in the mirror, no one's going to follow you because you're not believing in yourself. And I truly believe from the bottom of my heart, that's the way it should be, is that you need to take action. It's like being a father. You and I are fathers, and, our children are doing stuff, and we want them to take action. If they want to, do ballet or dancing or, being a football coach to playing basketball and whatever, you have to take action on the part. And you got to make those decisions quickly, because guess what happens? Your doubt
Yep.
creeps in your mind. And next you know, you don't. There was a commercial I remember when I was growing up, and I think it was like going to college. And the commercial was like, tomorrow, 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 tomorrow. And what it meant is, yeah, I'll start tomorrow. And then, it's raining outside. I don't want to go. It's tomorrow. So people put this tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow on, and no one's taking action on it. And so what if you fail? So if you trip, get back up, keep moving forward. Because when you break everything down, if you have big goals, the only way you can get them, right, is taking action. Yeah, everyone wants the low, hanging fruit. But the real deal to get things going is that you have to reach for the skies. You have to go after it. And, you got to prioritize everything that you're doing. And it doesn't mean you have to put it all in one massive group. Step one, step two, step three. I know it sounds funny, but sometimes that's the best way. So you don't go and go down another route. You keep going straight. You're overcoming, and you know what? Stay consistent. A lot of people don't stay consistent because, I commit to that. Reading the book, and next thing you know, I'm having a good time. Then something pops up, and next thing you know, I'm doing something else, and I wasn't staying consistent in reading books. So you got to stay consistent. That's one thing you do really well, but you got to do it small. Don't sit there and say, I'm going to read 50 pages tonight. Because what happens when you don't? You lose confidence in yourself. And then one thing is you can always adjust along the way, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. What you are doing in the podcast, divorce, it was huge. And a lot of people needed to hear that, because one thing I know about you, Scott, you're very straight, you're a straight shooter. And at times people don't want to hear the truth. It affects them differently. They get upset because it hit something, hit that nerve. And a lot of times people try to shove it down. Let's keep moving forward. But that thing just pops up all the time. And you just you got to figure it out, take care of it, learn from it, understand it, what you guys, what people have been through, and move on. And it's, again, taking action. And the one thing you have to do, if you take an action, hold yourself accountable. So you have to hold yourself, and that's huge, because you're tracking your progress. You're improving as you go.
The one thing that you hit on, you talked about facing the person in the mirror, starting with yourself, and the fact that if you don't have belief in yourself, what is going to draw somebody else to follow you? And so I really hate it when people are like, just fake it till you make it. I'm like, no, people can sense when you're fake. So it's a very fine line that you're walking. But if you don't believe in yourself and you don't understand the worth that you have and the value you can bring to somebody else, nobody else is going to jump on with you. The thing you have to be mindful about, that if you're being fake, you're going to attract fakeness, and then the people that are around you are not going to be the people that you want. So I know you had talked about a little bit about me being straight, shooting it straight with people. And people don't like that because they have to face the hard truth. But that's also part of the tribe that you have. If you have people that are all just yes people and they can't share the truth and you can't handle it, it's going to be very hard, because a lot of times people just want to hear the answer of whatever they're looking for to give them validation. But if it is not correct, or you're going down the wrong path and you're getting validation on that, you're going to be so far in left field. You're going to be pissed off because now you got to backtrack. And so it is the fact that you have to have an open mind. You have to be able to take and listen to those tough conversations, because if you can't, you're not going to help anybody. And so it is one of those things that if you call yourself a leader, you need to have an open mind, open ears to listen and to receive, because we're centered to everything. And that outside perspective from outside of you is necessary, because there are things that people can see that because you're centered to everything, you have this blindness to what's going on and what's not going right, that outside perspective is highlighting things that you're missing. And so that's a tough thing, and I don't think a lot of people really talk about that. Of, as a leader, you need to have an open mind, you need to be receptive, but while reflecting and having that go through your filter system, if whatever is being suggested is not going to help you and you've done enough of a deep dive to look and say, is this truly something that's going to help me, or is it going to hinder me? Because once you take it, and if you're like, yeah, I haven't really thought about that, let me run it through my filter system. And at the end of the day, if it comes back and you're like, yeah, that's something that I probably need to look in, consider, you need to do that, because, like I said, you're only one person. You're limited by your perspective, by your experience, and having that outside voice, that outside eyes, helps you, because you can only catch so much. We may assume that we're Superman and we're going to catch everything, but that's not how this works. And so you can joke and be like, I got eyes in the back of my head. No, you don't. You need to have that person that has your six and can highlight things that you're not seeing, so that way you don't get caught up. So I think that's one thing when I really think about it. How often do we hear others that are in the leadership space talking about having an open mind, having open ears, and being receptive, and not just turning everybody down, not tearing everybody down, but listening? But that also goes that hopefully you've built your tribe properly, that the people that are in there are there really to see you win and help you lift you up, and not doing some craziness. But if you haven't done what you needed to for yourself, that's where you potentially miss out, where you have the wrong people in your circle and then you're led astray.
To add to that is, I mean, you really hit everything in a sense. You really have to build strength within. You can't go half cocked. You can't go in thinking you got this. You got to think things through, because as a leader, you got to work on yourself and you got to be positive. You have to be confident. And people want that because they look at you, someone, they can hang out with, learn from you. Again, being a leader is not, having leadership is awesome, but you have to earn it. And a lot of times people have this entitlement, it's given to them. It's this title I got. And for me, I can't stand that. I can't stand when people have leadership and they really don't have any leadership skills at all, and they throw down authority. Okay. There's a difference of leadership. If I say, hey, Scott, we're in a construction business, we're going to have to go move this pile of horse crap. And I'm going to be great leaders, no matter if it's you or me. We're going to be sitting side by side, doing it together, because that's what great leadership is showing how it's done, not using the upper hand. And so when you are working on yourself and really turning on, making things happen and taking action, you got to know what you're doing. But you can always learn on your way there too. And that means to surround yourself with people who give you corrective criticism. You have to be a great listener, especially when you're listening to your tribe. People that you look up to and people that got your back no matter what will tell you, hey, you need to do this and you need to do this and you need to do this. And you're like, man, you get me right. You're pulling the strings. But once you listen and understand that, there's a whole different, the doors open up. Because right now, when you're not taking action, the doors are shut. Just plain simple. But when you open up those doors and people are telling you the right way of doing things, hey, listen, you need to do this, or you need to watch what you say, or whatever the situation is, Those are the things you have to take and put in place and take it not to harm you,
Yeah.
but to actually help you. Because, I mean, if you can have Warren Buffett as your mentor on finance, I, there wouldn't be anybody in the room without their hands raised, right? Or if you had, Dan V or anybody that, man, there's so my
Hmm.
mind's gone, or Jim Rome, right? Or Tony, just sit in the room with him. You'll be
Yeah.
listening with all ears open because they have great leadership and they just take action
Well,
on what they're
the
doing.
the interesting thing that also goes into student mode though too, and going in with the
Yes.
intention of let me find something that I haven't thought of before. But it's very interesting because the deadly phrase that a lot of people use is I already know that. And so the issue that you have is coming in with using that phrase of I already know that, you cut off any opportunity for receiving something that you're not aware of. As when you're like, I already know that,
Yeah.
your mind's like, all right, cool. I don't need to pay attention. But there might be just that one phrase that you need, but because you think you are a know it all, you miss out. And so you actually put yourself in a worse position than by being a student, having an open mind, and saying, what is there for me that is here that I can discover to take me to that next step, the next level, whatever it is. But that is also the action piece of taking the action of, I don't know everything. What is there
Mm-hmm.
for me to gain from this conversation? And that's a decision, and that's taking action of, I don't know everything. And so as humans, nobody knows everything. And so that's where
No.
being a student, having an open mind, and then taking action, because there's a lot of people that I'm a student, and you're like collecting all this information, but you're not taking any action. That doesn't serve you either. That does you no good. So it is a matter of being a student to learn, having the open mind, but then taking action to move forward. And so I think that's another thing that a lot of people don't catch themselves on. And then they hurt themselves and put
No.
themselves in a worse position than if they just change the verbiage, change the perspective, and went in it with a different intention than what they might be putting themselves in and what they're used to doing.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate. When I opened my first company, I was close to 20 years old in Palm Springs, California. Everyone was telling me, hey, dude, you're going to open an upholstery shop, right? And everyone's like, well, you don't know how to sew, this. I mean, there's so much thrown at me. And knowing how I was at that age and gone through what I went through, high school and stuff, is I did it. I took action. I didn't listen to anybody. Even my own mother said, you're an idiot for opening an upholstery shop. Well, you're right. I am not an idiot. What happens, I, turned it around, and my mom called me years down the road. I'd love to have you redo my house. 3 years.
Hmm.
I said no because I thought my mom's an entrepreneur. Man, she'll be my biggest supporter. And she was my biggest naysayer. And it's like, okay, I don't know how to sew, but I
Hmm.
know how to talk to people. I know how to create things and do things. And, my company in Palm Desert was like one of the number one shops in the Palm Springs region. So for me, having all the naysayers, doesn't matter what your age is. That's the craziest part, is that you could be 19, 20 years old. And
Hmm.
if you have a desire and you want to do something and create something, take action. Stop listening to the people outside your tribe. And yeah, that's a different story. But what it did is open up the doors to, people like, wow, you opened a post shop. Everyone else got jobs and got great jobs. Out of all my friends, was only an entrepreneur. And yeah, you know what? You have your ups and downs. But let me just tell you this: the people who I met, and I made a mistake right before you talk,
Hmm.
it's Gary V. Sorry, Gary. Is that to meet the people I've met. And I surround my tribe with people at my age, 50 to 60 years old. And they're like, George, you got to do this. You got to do this. I'm young. And these guys are millionaires, billionaires, you know, at that time. And I sat with them. I had coffee with them. I surrounded myself. And that was my tribe. They always, what are you doing better? What are you doing now? What are you creating? Are you expanding your mind? Are you just sitting there to make money? Are you there to help the community out? And there's a lot. And so, man, could you imagine, Scott, to do a job for a client? You don't know who the client is, and that client has to
Hmm.
be President Ford. To do work for President Ford, my age was 23 years old. I'm doing, you know, close to $800,000 a year in a shop that was open for 6 years. So you're creating this wealth, you're creating this thing, but also you're paying your employees real well. And people are like, oh, you gotta
Hmm.
pay them less. No, I'm not, because
Yeah.
I can't do the work. I had the idea, create the idea, and I moved forward. So why I'm saying this is I took action. I had a dream and meeting all these famous people. And what really kicked in was sitting down with, oh my gosh, my memory. My gosh, I can't believe this. But I'll think of it. But I sat down with Dinosaur, right? Playing the disco golf tournament in Rancho. It's just to sit down and ask her these questions and things like this. And it really hit to
Hmm.
me. I have something. And so I did some work for her several years before she passed away. And I just kicked in. It's Palm Springs. It's like Beverly Hills in the desert. And so I met all kinds of famous things. But why I'm telling you this, if I listened to all the naysayers and all the people who told me not to do it, I mean, I could count more than my fingers on my hands. I still did it. But you know what's funny? All those people came to me to have their stuff done. It was incredible. I mean, I'm telling you, my meeting people, we got more stories, but I just want to let you know, if you don't take action, you're going to sit back at 60 years old or 50 years old and like, damn, I should have done that. And everyone asked me, what was your best business? My best business was the upholstery shop. It was family. It was together. We worked together. My family was created from that company. And man, I'm just telling you, thank God I didn't listen to anybody. And I listened to a lady named Garnett. She was an interior decorator, and we had lunch one day, and she's like, George, I believe in you, and I'm going to give you all my work. And I'm like, I think I got something here. So, guys, I don't mean to keep going on this, but I'm telling you, if you're 19 years old and got your mom who's an entrepreneur, is doing very well, and you don't listen to her, you think I was off my rocker. But I knew I had something in my hands. So, again, look in the mirror, tell yourself you can do this, and you keep moving forward and be consistent what you want to do
Hmm.
and love what you do.
So the one thing really to ask yourself as a listener is, are you holding yourself back? Are you not taking the action? And what's the reason that's holding you back? And then on top of that is, if you don't take the action, who are you missing out on connecting with? Who are you missing out on that really needs what you have, but because you're not showing up, they're missing out. So it's really that question there to change and look at it differently and
Yeah.
discover and start taking action that you need to take. So other than that, like we say, hey, if you call yourself a leader and there was something in this episode that really resonated, and you know somebody is struggling, somebody's stuck, somebody needs a perspective shift different, share this with them, because ultimately, like we call the show, together we are stronger. And as humans, we're social creatures. We're meant to work together. So if there is somebody that you know that's stuck, share this with them, help them out. We appreciate you joining on this journey here, coming along with the podcast here. And other than that, we'll catch you on the next episode, and enjoy.
Always be yourself. Question. I think a lot of times people hold back because what's
Mm.
people going to say? Are they going to put me down? Are they going to laugh at me? I mean, what's crazy? US Today came out with that what is the richest land in the world? And I ask these questions these days, and people like, Dubai, and they go on and on, right? And I say graveyards. It's because people had ideas they never took action on.